Hide your crosses, tie down the bed, and warm up that split pea soup. We are going to need an old priest and young priest for this episode as we venture into the futuristic 70s with its hexagonal glass offices and return to Georgetown over and over, only twice with Regan. Welcome to the Mostly Pilot Night, Mostly. I am Graveyard, joined by my co-host Salem.
Hello.
This is episode 68 of our weekly All Things Horror podcast. Join us to see if we can become believers of this franchise. And I'm saying as of right now, no, we're not going to be believers of the Exorcist franchise.
Well, I mean, I don't have high hopes for the next three. I really don't. I've never seen them, but I've seen the trailers and they look horrible.
Yes.
And I'm usually a pretty good judge of how good a movie's going to be based on this trailer. But yeah, we'll see.
We'll definitely see. This is all in preparation of Exorcist Believer. That time recording just got released digitally, within 16 days of its theatrical release. So high hopes for that movie.
Well, yeah, they finally got like Ellen Burstyn to come back
50 years later.
Yeah, it's like a little late, but yeah, she came back.
Yeah, poor woman.
She probably had hospital bills or something.
Probably. So we'll be starting off with the original Exorcist trilogy, which is Exorcist 1973, Exorcist 2, The Heretic 1977, or what they believe to be 2010. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what they were going for there, but
cocaine is my guess.
Oh my god. I don't know. Yeah, there was like some kind of like alternate whatever we'll talk about.
Yes, and then Exorcist 3, 1990. We'll go into that as well when we get to it. And our olives this week will be inappropriately used crucifixes. Well, like I said, we'll get into it, but essentially, anyone who listens to what we do and know what we watch, we try to put our mind into the mindset of 1973, especially for the first one, and what people would consider to be fringe horror at that time. But we've watched Last House on the Left, we've seen I Spit in Your Grave, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, all the same time frame, Black Christmas, a lot more fringe.
Right.
So, all right, I'll go through the recap of the first Exorcist, 1973. And I think it is, 45 minutes before something maybe disturbing, paranormal?
Correct. Yeah, we don't start getting, like, clues that paranormal stuff is happening until at least 30 minutes in. And
right.
We don't actually see anything supernatural-ish happening until, like you said, about 45 minutes.
We get a lot of backstory for everything for the last 25 minutes of the movie.
Right. So yeah, we start to see supernatural stuff, and then we basically get like, I don't know, medical student porn for like 20 minutes. It's extremely long.
Yes.
And then yeah, the namesake of the movie, The Exorcist, does not show up until the last 30 minutes, and it's a 2-hour long.
Yes, all of these are about 2 hours long.
Yeah.
Which is absurd. I'm saying that right now. So essentially we begin off with the movie with what you would think is like Indiana Jones. Essentially, the archaeological dig that is probably 15 minutes of the movie of an archaeologist.
It's like a solid 10 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. A guy, finding stuff in the ruins, finds old stuff, and you assume archaeologist. But yeah, essentially it is what that is Father Marin, yeah. Played by Max von Sydow. I already said his last name.
Yeah, Max von Sydow. The king from Conan the Barbarian.
Yes.
The Nazi and apt pupil.
The old guy from Force Awakens.
Right. He's been in a lot of stuff.
Pretty sure he was just credited as old guy. I don't know.
I don't know if he was ever young. I don't think I've ever seen him young.
Right.
He's always been an old man.
So essentially he is, like I said, he is doing like I said, archaeological dig in history, in religion, in Middle East somewhere. Maybe northern Egypt.
Yeah, I think they say it was Egypt.
Yeah.
Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Something like that. Yeah. It's an old ritual site, essentially, where they worship Pazuzu, the ancient deity.
Which is not brought up, by the way.
No.
He finds a little head of a statue in like a nook thing. He brushes it off. And he's like, oh, this looks familiar. So he goes to a big statue of that and he holds it up and you can see that it's the same head. And that's it. We don't get any spoken information about what that is or what significance it may hold. We don't get any of that. The book does go into it.
Oh, yeah.
The movie does not.
Correct. So that's that. Let's call that plot A. We have 4 main people that we follow for the most part. And then we are introduced to the, very skyscraper-ridden Georgetown, Washington, D.C., which, fun fact, it was shots of New York, which I'd look up because, like, wait a minute, this is New York. This isn't Georgetown, Washington, D.C. No, it's supposed to be. Where we are introduced to Chris McNeil, who is an actress working for one of the drunkest directors I've ever seen. And while they're staging some sort of protest in the scene, we're introduced to her. We do see the other Father Karras in the scene for some reason. I don't know. Is ever explained why he was there?
He was just watching.
Okay.
Because there's like a crowd of people watching. You can tell they were behind like the line. Have you ever been to a movie set?
No.
Like,
yes, but not one that size.
Well, because if it's like a major movie, people will always go to like see what they can see, and there's always like a perimeter that they set up. And as long as you stay behind the line and stay quiet, they usually don't care.
Yeah.
And so anytime there's a movie being filmed, of course, I don't know. They never said like how famous she is, but she seemed to be a relatively famous actress, right?
Oh, she seemed pretty well off.
Yeah. So if it's a big thing like that that's happening right down the street from where you live and work, then yeah, you're going to check it out.
Yeah.
I think there was just an excuse for them to follow along and show that he's also part of the story. That's all it is. I mean, there was really no reason for him to be there.
Right. So we do see some of the stuff going with the mother, Chris McNeil. And then she's like, oh, I'm going to walk home today. I'm not going to take the car. She goes past, sees Father Karras. They're talking. We don't hear what they're saying, really. And then she gets home where she has a maid, a babysitter / tutor, a handyman at her house.
Well, and she has a butler.
Yeah, a German butler.
Oh yeah. She has a butler, like a house cleaner, like / maid, and then like a personal assistant / nanny.
Yeah,
that's
I thought it was the landlord or owner that put the rat traps up, not the butler.
No, that's the butler guy.
Oh, okay. So she's telling him, she's like, oh, I hear rats. We must have rats. Later find out that's something supposed to be supernatural.
Now okay. Here we are. Like, this is what I mark. The first hint that supernatural things are happening is when she notes that, hey, there's sounds coming from the attic. It might be rats. That's 30 minutes into the movie.
And then nothing happens.
Nothing has happened up to this point. 30 minutes into the movie, I think there might be rats in the attic. That is the first hint that something supernatural is happening.
Yes. Yeah. So kind of end of that note for a while. Then we meet the boxer / priest, Father Karras. Well, he goes to visit his mother in New York, who is clearly not well. Kind of just, tells her, what to do, take care of her, looks like wound maybe on her ankle. And at first I thought it was his apartment. But it was just like essentially a cot in the room, and then it's like a living room, decent sized living room with a TV where she's watching stuff, all that stuff. It's talking about like he's having a crisis of faith, and all that stuff. Talking to the other priest who comes into play in the third movie, right? That's the same priest. No?
No.
Dr. Canavan?
I don't know. Which priest are you talking about?
Father Joseph Dyer. That was the priest in number 3. That was he also number 2? Never mind. Anyway,
I don't know. I don't know. They said that he knew him, but he's not the same actor.
Oh, I thought he was for some reason.
I mean, it might be the same character, but it wasn't the same actor.
Okay, it's the same character then.
Maybe I didn't even see it as that. Again, it doesn't matter. He's a priest that lives in a seminary. Of course, he's gonna know a lot of priests and be friends with a lot of people. You can say anybody was his friend.
Yeah, because I thought it was the priest at the party that was in the third one that was playing the piano. Anyway,
again, there's no connection. I didn't make any connection between them.
Okay. I think, was it at this point in time, we got another 30 minutes, or 20 minutes, we got a hint that her bed moved. Regan, the 12-year-old daughter, her bed moved.
Yeah, the mom wakes up and she's in her bed and she's like, "What are you doing here?" And she's like, "I couldn't sleep, my bed was shaking." That was it. A common offhand remark. Yep. That's it.
Yep.
Again, that's like I said, this is 45 minutes into the movie now.
Yes. So the mother just kind of shakes it off. I think while she's asleep in bed, like the father calls, saying he's in Europe doing in the circus.
No, I think he's also an actor.
Okay.
Or something.
Clearly separated.
Oh yeah.
It's talking about it's your daughter's birthday. How can you not call her? Blah blah blah. And we also get a little scene here where they're going into the basement and she finds a Ouija board just offhandedly. She's like, "I want to talk to Captain Howdy. He's my friend. You like the director like you used to like Daddy. He told me that." And
well, you forgot that the placard flew away by itself.
Yes. But everyone just dismisses it.
Well, everyone being the two people in the room. There was only the mother and the daughter.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal. It only happened once and nothing really came of it.
Right. I think the whole purpose of the Ouija board in the movie, at least, is to say this is how the evil got in.
Probably. Again, this is we're going back to the Warren School of Demonology. So where if you touch a Ouija board, you're inviting a demon into your house.
By the Parker brothers, yes.
Yeah, exactly. But
So anyway, after I think it feels like filming's wrapped because it seemed like there would be a wrap party that she's having at her house.
It might have been. I mean, yeah, she was there. The director person was there.
Right.
We don't know who the other stars or anything were. So, I mean, those two were there. Who knows?
Right. Where the party is so lively, you invite a priest who then plays the piano and everyone sings along around the piano. The director gets very, very drunk. Calls the butler a Nazi.
I'm Swiss.
Yeah, right. And he, the director leaves very, very drunk. It's like, okay, we'll talk later. And then Regan comes down and is like, "I don't feel good," and then pees. Stand up.
Oh, she comes down and says, "You're all going to die."
Oh, that's right.
She says something ominous and then pisses on the floor.
You're all going to die up there?
I don't know. She came down and said, "You're all going to die," or something like that. Something spooky, scary.
Right.
She said, and then she pissed on the floor and everybody was like,
Right.
And the mom was like, oh, she's just been sick. It's like, she was just down here in a party dress.
Yes.
What are you talking about? But I mean, like, whatever. She's making an excuse so that people will, like, forget about it.
Yeah. So she returns, Regan to bed. All of a sudden, that's when the bed starts, like, violently shaking. And the mother, Chris, gets on it. And, like, even with her weight on it, it's still violently shaking. Right. And what do? You take your kid to doctors.
And now we get medical porn for like 20 minutes. We get to see what I like to refer to as the Stone Age of medicine. Because, I mean, these instruments they are using compared to like even today's like bad medical facilities, like they look barbaric.
Oh yeah. Hey, I'm going to bleed you out from the neck for a little bit while then I inject you with iodine or really it's derivative of uranium to do x-rays.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I feel like they let her bleed out for a while.
Yeah, it was like squirting, but apparently like they had like real medical people come in and teach them exactly how this procedure would go. Like this is like a picture perfect procedure of how that would go. Like that is how it actually happened.
Right.
Which is terrifying.
Right. And like, okay, now we're going to strap your head down and put like equivalent of like 4 cinder blocks machines on each side of your head.
Right. Yeah. Again, there's like
bang, like your car has no muffler, no shocks.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is like a solid 15-20 minutes of like medical procedures over and over and over again. It is bad.
Right. And, talking about like, oh, she's had these mood changes and she seems perfectly sweet. She's like, told me I was a fucking cunt. And stuff like that. And like, oh, haha, she just must be, sick or whatever. And fun fact, one of the actual people in the radiologist turns out he's the one that killed the sister from Poltergeist.
Yeah, I did hear about that. I heard that it was one of the people in one of the medical proceders, but like there was so many of them, I don't know. I'm going to guess the guy with the creepy rapist glasses, but I could be wrong.
That was it.
I was like, it looks like him. I was trying to pick him, like which guy I think would be a murderer.
Right.
And I'm like, I think it's that guy, but I don't know.
Right. And then all of a sudden she like has a goiter, it looks like developing in her neck, which effect wise looked great. Of her neck swelling up. So all that is kind of going on there. So yeah, and also she has very high strength. And the doctor's like, well, there's no physical ailment. And all the medical professionals like, hey, are you religious? No, why? Have you thought about talking to a priest?
Well, like, yeah, have you considered an exorcism? And they're not saying it as the like, we give up, go to a priest.
They want it as a placebo.
Right, yeah. They're trying to say, like, are you religious? Is she religious? Is she trying to... Because, I mean, like, again, 99% of all of these cases are very much explainable by people, whatever, falling into what they think possession should be because of some other deeper seated mental illness. And they're, kind of alluding to that, saying, hey, if you do this, maybe you'll get her to, get better.
Right.
This is part of her therapy.
Right. It's like, hey, if she believes she is possessed, maybe the exorcism will then ease her mind and think that she's no longer possessed. It's clearly something mental at this point. Because no physical issues.
Right. Yeah, they basically tell her, you got to go to shrinks. We've done all we can. And it's like a group of like, I don't know, there's like 10 doctors around the table. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And she had a very interesting reaction to it. And I don't disagree. But anyway, then a detective comes by and he's like, hey, the director was found dead. And it was underneath your daughter's window, and his head was turned completely around, which we don't see.
No, but basically, what happened was the mom had gone out for something. She came back home, and
the personal assistant had left just for
Well, the personal assistant was what came in right behind her, and she's like, "Oh, where were you?" And she's like, "Oh, I had to go out and do something." I left the director. I left the drunk guy here to watch her, and they were like, "Well, he's gone." Like, "Oh, why'd you trust the drunk guy?"
Right.
Like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And then later on, we find out that he apparently fell down the stairs and died
with his head twisted
at that time. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, and the detective came by who was really, really obsessed with seeing movies with people.
Dude, it's 1973, man. What else are you going to do?
I know. It's like, hey, I got an extra ticket. You want to come see a movie with me? Who's in it? Tell them, oh, all right, seen it. Like, wow, he's not making any friends. But anyway, I think detectives kind of implying that the way he fell, it would not have twisted his head around the way it was. It was like physically twisted around and then shoved down the stairs.
Yeah, they're like, well, could it have happened? Possibly. Like, what are the odds of it happening? Like, extremely low.
Right.
So he's trying to see what else is going on, and he basically sees that, oh, he knew these people.
Yeah.
If and the window from the little girl's room is like literally right next to the stairs.
Right. So he interviews a detective or Father Karras. He's like, "You look like a boxer." I'm like, he does look like a boxer. He's not wrong, and he was a boxer. Boxer / priest / exorcist assistant at some point.
Well, yeah, and again, the pop culture references they're bringing up in the 70s, I have no idea what they're talking about.
No,
like naming boxers and movies that I'm like, no clue. I don't know what those are.
You're like Little Big Jim. Yeah, okay.
Got it.
Right. So anyway, he kind of no, he doesn't come by. Is it Father Karras comes by at this point in time, right?
Well, the mom kind of seeks him out.
Yeah.
Because one, she went through all the medical stuff first, then she went through all the psychological stuff first. And then they're kind of like, she's looking into this exorcism thing because somebody brought it up. And she's going to him because he's a little of both. Like, he's a psychologist, that like really good psychologist that went to like Harvard and like Johns Hopkins and stuff, and like is a very, very good psychologist who also just happens to be a priest. So she's like, if anybody can make a judgment, whether it's a psychological issue or a religious issue, this is the guy.
Right. But this is right before this, though, is where we get the inappropriate crucifix uses.
There's a few of them.
Yeah. So essentially,
shocking for 1973. Shocking.
I'm not sure. I'm not getting into that. Never mind. So essentially, this is where we get the common scene of using a crucifix for pleasure and her turning her head backwards. Classic scenes, especially the head turning stuff, is parodied nonstop.
Yeah, the head turning thing only happens like once.
Yes.
And her head doesn't go all the way around.
No.
It just goes the one way for like a little bit, one scene, and then it's done.
Yes. So anyway, I think that's when the priest, which, don't get me wrong, from what we've seen in the Warren world, he'd be a better exorcist because he realizes it is psychological. So he does that, medical route first.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, he's talking to her and he's like, I think he's recording it. And because he plays it back.
Well, when he first sees her, because he's like, oh yeah, whatever, I'll go check it out. Okay, lady, whatever. Yeah. And he goes up there and he's like, he sees some weird shit. Like, she somehow knows about his mom. Because his mom had died at that point. Yeah. And he's like, somehow knew about his mom. And he's like, how the hell would she know that? And he asked her, he's like, did you tell her about my mom? And she's like, no, why would I do that? Right. And so that at that point, he's like, okay, something's going on here. So then he looks into, because again, like he tells her, like, what do we have to do to get an exorcism? He's like, I don't know. Nobody does it anymore. Like, it's something that nobody's even thought of. Like, he's like, I live in a seminary. I talk to priests all the time. I've never even met one that knew someone who did an exorcism. Like, it's never happened.
Correct. So
he's looking into
the proof of burden, essentially.
Right. Yeah. What he needs to prove to the church, and they're looking for like, he speaks a language that she doesn't know. Right. It's goofy stuff like that is what they're looking for. So yeah, that's why he goes there to record it, so that if she speaks a different language, he can record it.
And has the famous split pea soup projectile scene where she vomits on him, and he records her speaking in tongues. But we eventually find out that when he plays it backwards, it's not a different language. She's just speaking backwards.
Right.
But I also believe that she was claiming stuff that wasn't true, right? That is like a false information type deal. So it seemed like that's why he was led to believe that she might be lying, just because she's just saying stuff that isn't true, that was leaked to not be true. Anyway, so he eventually says, exorcism is warranted. He gets, permission from, I'd say, the cardinal.
No,
No,
the bishop.
The bishop.
A cardinal is a lot fancier. The guy in the second movie, the guy with the fancy hat and stuff, that's a cardinal.
Okay.
Cardinal is one step under the Pope. So
the bishop of the diocese in Georgetown area.
Yeah, or bishop or archbishop. But not cardinal level.
But he's like, hey, you are not able to do this, so I will bring in another priest that this is kind of their speciality. And you can assist with him.
It didn't say it was a speciality. It said he did it once before. Meaning this old man is the only guy that we know of that has done it before.
Right. So he flies in from wherever, somewhere in the Middle East, Northern Africa.
Well, no, they said he was back.
Was he? Okay.
Yeah, he said, I thought he was in Africa. And they're like, no, he's been back. He was writing a book.
Okay.
So he was back. I don't know if it was nearby, but he was, around, at least in the States.
Yes. Cue the poster. Right? The priest arriving in the taxi, arriving to the house in the fog. And I have forgotten, because it's so ingrained in pop culture, the Exorcist music does not play when he arrives.
The Exorcist music does not play very often.
It plays at the beginning of the movie. Right. That's basically it.
Right. I mean, there's a couple of little tings here and there, but it's not, like Friday the 13th, it plays nonstop. It's like the only music you hear is the Jason theme song, right?
Right.
But this is, it's very, very sparsely.
Yeah.
But anyway, when the priest comes in, to your point earlier, that's when he basically explains to him, the demon's gonna lie a lot.
Yep.
And he's like, well, what does that mean? He's like, well, it's going to be the worst kind of lies because it's going to be mixed with the truth. So you don't know what to believe and what not.
Right.
So that was the statement. I wasn't sure what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the statement where he said.
Yeah. So, and then with 25 minutes left of the movie, we finally get to the exorcism.
Right, yeah. The Exorcist finally, the guy that's the title of the film finally shows up when it's
an hour 30.
Over 3/4 of the way done.
Yes. So they go kind of through their first rounds of stuff. The power of Christ compels you, all that jazz, more vomit, lies, and just kind of trying to subdue her. They take a break after, the power of Christ compels you about, I think, 12 times. Enough where she has to get re-strapped and stuff like that. So eventually, the older priest goes and he takes, I think, nitroglycerin for his heart. He takes some pill because he's shaking badly.
Yeah, no, it's nitroglycerin.
Yeah. Eventually, for some reason while he's doing that, Karras goes back into the room. He sees his mother there. So he kind of is that when he just starts punching the crap out of her?
Yeah, well, yeah, he loses his shit, right?
Yeah.
And so the older priest
the boxer comes out. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, all right, well, you either need to get your hold of your shit or you need to get the hell out of here. Take a break.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he leaves and he's gone for I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. It's not very long.
Yeah. But eventually it gets quiet in there and they go back in and, well, the old priest is dead.
Yeah. Yeah, he just laying on the bed dead.
Yep. Well, this is when he starts, and he's just, trying to finish the spell and he's like, all right, well, take me instead. So Father Karras gets briefly possessed, and why a demon would jump into a priest, I don't know.
Well, I mean, if this demon is getting off on making a 12-year-old girl masturbate with a crucifix,
yeah,
it's the kind of demon that's going to get off on making a priest do all kinds of horrible shit.
Yeah,
it's going to like that a lot more. So yeah, I could definitely see it jump.
Yeah. So essentially, then he goes, oh, it's in him. So he jumps out the window, falls down the stairs, and briefly is still alive. Well, the detective's like, all right, I guess I'll give you the last rites. And as the detective walks in, because he just happened to be walking back towards the house when all this is going on there. Regan seems perfectly fine. Her wounds that were inflicted are starting to heal pretty quickly. And so the evil is gone. The mother's like, all right, I'm getting the hell out of here. The priest that was the scene at the party came by. He's like, here, you take this coin necklace that the old guy found on his dig. We're going to leave. And she's like, oh, she doesn't remember anything that happened to her. So everything seems to be okay. And kind of the last shot is the detective looking down those stairs, which we will revisit many more times in this trilogy, where the priest died. So the old priest, the young priest are dead. Reagan's good. End of movie. We will say this right now. I will say this right now. I am not a fan of the Exorcist movies. Especially I think we give way, way too much credit to the first one. It seems to be it's still 50 years later, number one movie on the scariest movies of all time. And I think people are just giving this a pass and not very scrutinous of this movie as they are with other horror movies.
Well, okay. Well, we discussed this
Yeah.
a little bit before, but here's what I think it is. I'm going to break a lot of hearts. I hope nobody gets angry. But the horror community as a whole likes to parrot what I like to call like the horror icons, right?
Yeah.
It's like the big actors, the big directors of the series, whatever they kind of say, a lot of horror fans just take that as gospel, right?
Right.
And then they just start parroting that, and then they believe the same thing because, oh, well, if my idol says it, then it must be true. Right. Now, a lot of these people are older, right? And they grew up around this time when The Exorcist came out. Now, The Exorcist made a huge impact when it came out in 1973.
Yes.
Because, again, at this time, there was a lot of crazy stuff happening in movies and in horror, especially. They were pushing a lot of boundaries. There's all kinds of like X ratings getting thrown around. They were kind of permanently skirting that line of like, were they going to be X rated or going to be R rated? What can they get away with? What they cannot get away with? And it was pushing a lot of borders and a lot of shocking stuff that would have never happened in movies before that time.
Right.
And again, Exorcist, pushed a lot of boundaries. It did. Like the scenes with a 12-year-old girl saying the things she says, doing the things she says, it's shocking, right?
Right.
So the people of that age are like, wow, this is the first movie to really like push you, right? Like make you uncomfortable and that kind of stuff. So that's to them, that's an iconic film. So fast forward, 20, 30, 40 years. And now, when they ask, what's your favorite horror movie? They're going to say that because, again, what are the movies that are our favorites? The one that we grew up with, right?
Yeah.
The one that we've seen, the one that we have a special connection with, those are our favorites. They won't necessarily the best made films. They're our favorites that we have a connection to. Now, those older, people have a connection to that movie. So they say The Exorcist is my favorite movie. And then you get horror fans that just parrot what they say. So they say, oh, well, that's also my favorite.
Yeah.
Ask them why. They don't really know. They'll just, spot off all the stuff you read on Wikipedia and under the like awards and recognition section, right? That's what they spot off because that's all that they know. They don't have that cultural touch point that a lot of those other people do. Like, the older people that were, out when that movie came out and saw that cultural impact, I totally get why you say that's your favorite movie. I understand. Like you said, people today that weren't even born at that time, I have no idea why they say it because, as you said, I'm not a big fan of this movie either. No. I mean, it's not a bad movie, but it is nowhere near the best horror movie of all time, as many, many people claim.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Like I said, I feel like this is never scrutinized as much as Halloween or Friday the 13th for whatever reason.
Yeah, well, the reason is if they counter that, they're going to go against their, quote unquote horror icons, right?
Yeah.
And, who are they going to debate it with? Other people that also follow the same horror icons. It's just, they're just going to be, yelling into a void. No one really has, I mean, some people do. I'm not going to say, everybody or I am the only one. No, not true at all. I'm just saying that a lot of people just parrot that because, again, certain, like we were discussing earlier, certain genres, they conform to what they think is that standard, right? And they just parrot the things that they believe that standard is. And unfortunately, one of the things that's parroted in the horror community is that The Exorcist is the greatest horror movie of all time, which I don't believe it. You don't believe it.
No.
I don't get it. I just don't understand it. It's not like I said, not a bad movie. It's nowhere near great. It's not even in top 5, not top 10. I don't even know how far the list has to go down for it to be beyond it.
I don't think this is my top 20 franchises.
Yeah, I mean, that's true, too. I mean, well, there's lots of reasons why I don't like it. I'm just saying, like, overall, I don't see how anybody does that.
Right.
To be fair.
The book is good, but I can't help believe, especially when we went through all the Warren crap, that this movie didn't help lead into the Satanic Panic. The Warrens capitalized on.
It totally did. I mean, and it's stuff like this that normalizes, this goofy shit, right?
Yeah.
That like, oh, you touch a Ouija board, you invite a demon in your home. Like, give me a break, dude.
No, you don't.
Like, it's bullshit. You're looking for any excuse that you can find. Again, the Ouija board is made by fucking Parker Brothers, man.
Yep.
You can buy it at like any toy store. It's not a spiritual device.
No.
I don't know. Some of these people annoy the shit out of me. But again, I hate the Warrens, and this is like Warren porn. This is like,
oh, absolutely.
This is like the time period they were out. They probably loved this because it probably made them a shit ton of money.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely did. I'll roll into my highlights. The acting wasn't bad. I think for a young 13-year-old Linda Blair, I think she did a fantastic job, especially in comparison to what she does after this in this franchise. But they also realized it wasn't a complete reliance on Linda Blair to carry the movies. They had really 2 to 3 main people that were adults. They carried a lot of the emotional weight. Now, I think she did a good job with the acting as being possessed? I do, and became kind of a mainstay, especially the eyes, and stuff like that. I said it looked good, other than Georgetown having skyscrapers. And I said the acting was good, and it is a classic, and there are classic scenes. I will never take that away from it, but I just will never think this is a scary movie. What are your highlights?
Those possession scenes were good. I mean, that shock value was good. Again, for me, it doesn't hit quite so hard, but I mean, for 1973, that was big stuff, right?
Yeah.
I did the music is not used very often. It is good though. It is like kind of delightfully creepy.
Yes.
But it's, again, not used enough. I don't know if they were like trying to save money by not using it or whatever they're doing, but that was cool. But also I appreciated the real cold that they did. Like the actual set was refrigerated.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. They were miserable.
Yeah. I mean, but like they walk into the room and you can see their breath and everything. And again, this is 73. They don't have CGI breath. Yeah. Like if you wanted to see cold breath, you had to make it cold. And that's what they did. Like the set was freezing cold.
Yeah. So they said they built it in a refrigeration unit.
Right. Yeah. So like that's again crazy to me that they could do that, especially. Yeah. But anyway, it was that was cool. I like that. But that's it. You want to go to lows, or you want to go into yours?
Why don't you roll into your lows? We're probably spending more time here.
I don't know. I mean, again, I already pretty much went into what I really don't like about it, or why I don't think it's that good. But I'll say the smoking in this movie. Dear Lord, everybody is smoking all the time. Every doctor, as soon as they're done doing their examination, lighting up a smoke. Literally in the room, equipment is right there. Patients, they're like breathing smoke into their face. It was crazy, but everybody was smoking. I don't remember when they came up with the big report that like smoking is actually bad for you, but I'm pretty sure it was around this time.
Oh, it's definitely by this time.
Yeah, so that was shocking. 2. Man, this movie is slow. It takes forever to get where it's going. Like, I understand that it's trying to build up stuff that's going on, but like, wow, there's so much unnecessary crap in here. Like, we get it, like, we don't need to see this again. We don't need to see this, like, we get it. Like, stop. Like I said, you don't even get a hint that something supernatural is happening until like 30-40 minutes into the movie. You don't get to see like an actual supernatural thing, which is literally just the bed shaking until like an hour in.
Yep.
And The Exorcist, the person that's the title of the film, doesn't show up until more than 3/4 of the way through. It's like, it's so slow. And the build up, I guess people probably love that build up, but again, I think it's too much and it's too slow. Again, I talked about that Stone Age medicine. I mean, that is just crazy. You're looking at these X-ray machines, and they look like they're built out of like cast iron, and somebody beat on them with a pipe because like the paint's all chipping off and stuff. Like, and it makes a sound like a factory, like ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. I mean, it's terrible.
It sounds like a big rivet machine,
right? I mean, it's like, wow, this is medicine in 1973. This is horrible, and this is like high class medicine back then.
Oh yeah, she had all the money,
right? That's nuts.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, just as I've said before, I will say many times again, just religious nonsense.
Yep.
It's just, again, they don't push it too hard in this movie. I will give them that. They don't push it as hard as they do in like, the Conjuring movies. But it is there. I mean, but it's again, it's not pushed really hard. Like, yeah, they're priests. Yeah, they're there, but they don't like go off on tirades about how, Jesus will save you or anything like that. They really only talk about Jesus when they're talking about getting rid of the demon. So,
right.
But it's still enough to annoy me. What do you got?
Yeah. I mean, they're slow burns. This is a failure to start for
right.
a very long time. Like, you're sitting there rubbing your two sticks together, waiting for an hour plus to get some smoke. It's that slow of a burn. Like, this is like, all right, give up and go home. You're not making fire today type deal. Yeah, I agree on that medical stuff. I'm like, holy shit, I would not want to do that. Like,
yeah, no, 73, I'll just kill me. Just shoot me. Save me.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, they don't push the religious stuff hard. I do, like I said, I do appreciate the fact that they tried to look at from a medical side first before it's jumping, head deep into Warren land. But yeah, I mean, this movie, we probably didn't need all this backstory. Like, did we need to know Karis was a boxer? No, not necessary to anything other than why he's punching the girl, 12-year-old girl, I guess. Yeah, you're right. The smoking is very prevalent in the next two of these as well. Like, I'm pretty sure it's number 3 where the guy is smoking a cigarette and literally uses the cigarette to light another cigarette.
Yeah, but he's also showing how nervous he is. That's why he's doing it. But yeah,
yes, smoking
in the biz, we call that monkey fucking. When you light a cigarette off of another cigarette, it's called monkey fucking.
Yes, but yeah, it is a character trait. That is your character. What's your character do? He smokes. Why? He just smokes. Okay.
Well, that was back then. Nowadays, nobody smokes. Like, the only bad guys can smoke.
Right.
What is it? Bad guys and foreigners are the only people.
Yes.
Are the only people that can smoke and like.
They also can't have Apple phones.
Good.
Yeah, that's. And it felt really weird too to have the guy calling the butler a Nazi for no reason.
Well, he's a drunk.
I mean, he's a drunk, but I'm like, this is like it's like obscene levels of character development that aren't really necessary.
He's a drunk, and the dude is a very straight-laced butler.
Yeah.
Okay, he's like, it's like the people that try to get like the palace guards to laugh in England.
Yeah.
It's the same type of shit. It's like some people cannot leave people the fuck alone. I have to like mess with people like, oh, I have to make this guard laugh because he's not supposed to say anything or move, so they have to fuck with him to make him do that. Some people are just assholes, and that's how it is. That's how the guy was just an asshole.
Yeah.
So he's going to keep fucking with the poor guy until he snaps.
Yeah.
Which is what happened.
So yeah, that's my low points. Number of inappropriately used crucifixes out of 10. I've been thinking about this since watching these, and I haven't determined what I'm going to give it. Why don't you go first? I want to see how you feel about it.
Again, it's not a bad movie. Is it a movie that I rewatch? No. I don't. I've seen it a few times simply because other people have wanted to watch it, and and I have. And again, every time I'm just like, why? Like, why?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an okay movie. I mean, like I said, it's got good acting. I can appreciate a lot of the things that it did, and the cultural impact that it had, which is going to weight my rating here. But I really just don't care for it. Like, I will give it a 5. I'll say a 5 inappropriately used crucifixes out of 10.
Yeah, I think we discussed before on this and off this that I probably haven't watched these since I was going through my franchises list in the 90s. And eventually I got to this trilogy of the scariest horror movie of all time. And I have not watched it since the years began with the number 2. I can tell you that one right now. So anything 2000 on, I've definitely not watched these since then. So yeah, rewatchability isn't high for me. I don't think there's anything neat. Do I like watching like cursed films about this? Yes, I find it interesting. But I'd rather watch that stuff than this movie. I will agree. I think 5 is pretty good for us for stuff like this.
Well, again, I mean, I personally would give it lower, but in appreciation for the cultural impact that it had, I give it a little bit higher.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen much worse stuff that came out in this time frame and more shocked by it.
Right.
So, but probably people weren't watching Last House on the Left in 1973 as much as they were The Exorcist.
Well, again, yeah, because I've seen The Exorcist. I've seen it a couple of times, and like, I just never had the desire to watch the second one. Like, hearing what I heard about the second one, I'm like, yeah, I didn't really care for the first one. Why would I put myself through that? I don't care. So I never watched anything else other than the first one.
Oh, I have seen the second one now twice.
So. This is the first time, and it was rough.
Speaking of which, why don't you go ahead and lead us through The Heretic.
So, The Exorcist 2, The Heretic. I will preface this by saying this has been credited by many people to be the worst movie ever made.
Yeah.
It shows up on almost every list where you talk about the worst movies ever made. This movie is on almost all of them. Sometimes it's number 1. It's just a horrible, horrible film. But I will try. It took me, this movie is like about 2 hours long. It took me a little over 3 hours to watch it because I had to keep taking breaks. I had to keep like going, oh man. And I will say I stopped taking notes after a while. Mm-hmm. Like I literally just wrote, I gave up on my notes. Like I can't do it anymore. It's like there's just so many stupid things that happen that I just gave up. So
I mean, in fairness, when I was watching it with the wife and she's like, this still isn't done.
Yeah, it feels longer than it is because it is god awful. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to try to get through this. I'm going to try to make it quick because it's a painful movie. And if you really want to put yourself through that pain, go ahead and watch it. Like, really, but you don't have to. You really don't. It's kind of funny to see the complete opposites of 2 and 3. We'll get into that when we get to 3, but that's the only interesting thing about this. But we'll see. Anyway, so Exorcist 2. Basically goes into what's her Linda Blair is what's her name?
Regan.
Whatever. Regan. Okay. So Regan is now like what, 18? Or no, she's supposed to be 16.
Yeah, 16.
Linda Blair is at 18, but she's supposed to be 16.
Yes.
So she's like 16 years old and she's like living her happy best life now, right? But she has to go to psychiatrist, because of the bad things that happened to me when I was younger. I have to go to psychiatrists so that they can check up on me because my mom is out of the country. That's the excuse that they give to why Ellen Burstyn did not come back.
She needed a paycheck.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she didn't see the paycheck at all. She's just like, I don't want to be attached to this shit of a movie. Which is everybody else turned down. Linda Blair, I totally understand why she took it because at the time this was made, this was like the most expensive movie that Warner Bros. Had ever made.
Yeah.
At this time, which is, again, I think it ended up being like 14 million, which is like chump change nowadays. But back then that was big, big money. Yes. So there was big pay coming out, but yeah, Ellen Burstyn thankfully didn't touch it. But Linda Blair, 18 years old, getting offered a ton of money. Yeah, she jumped at it. I get it. I understand. But yeah, like literally no one else from the original movie comes over. So she goes to the psychiatrist, which is in this bizarrely like future world psychology. I want to call it like a studio, right?
It's like Westworld.
Right. It's like picture like a giant warehouse with like glass pods, like hexagonal glass pods to where you can see in all the offices. You can see like the other psychiatrists and their patients like laying down on their couches and stuff. Mm-hmm. You can see like kids playing and other ones and shit like that. But it's like all see-through and you can all see it at the same time. Again, it's like trying to be like pseudo-futuristic. But it's like the 70s version of futuristic. It looks like Logan's Run. If you've ever seen Logan's Run.
It also reminds me of like what Willy Wonka would have in his factory, his office.
Right. But it's got like a heavy Logan's Run vibe because again, it was the same thing at the time. Anyway, so she's doing that, and the doctor's going, "Oh, I got this new fancy machine that we should try one of these days." It's this hypnotic sinker. I don't even think they have a name for it. It's like whatever. I'm going to call it a hypnotic
essentially
stinker.
You tune the flashes of your bulb to match the other person.
It's fucking. Well, I'll get into this. I'll get into this later. I don't want to concentrate on it now. But anyway, the machine is basically like a little box with a stick coming out of it with two lights coming out. And like one light points at one person, one light points at the other person. They put on a little strap on their head with some little, medical EKG patches or whatever they're on there. And then somehow they put themselves in a hypnotic state, which makes their light go slower and also like has a different tone, like a lower tone to it. And then and if you're like still conscious, it goes like me, like you can tell it's a higher pitched and it's faster, so that means you're still there. And the only thing required for you to get synced down to them is go, hey, come down here with me, and they do.
That's it.
Magic.
That's how you synchronize your thoughts.
Right, exactly. Just, hey, can you think this same thing? Perfect. We're done. Future is here. So they do this, right? The priest guy comes in. Well, there's, okay, I guess I should do this. This priest guy is like supposedly like a protege of Father Merrin. Now, Father Merrin being the old guy who died in the first one.
Yes.
Now, Father Merrin in this one becomes like a superhero. Okay, like in the first movie, he was just some old priest that had, done some backwoods or exorcism, that he was the only guy that had done an exorcism within whatever radius of the church. Like there was no like mystical significance of Father Merrin. He was just a guy, right? In this movie, he is like the second fucking coming. Like apparently he was like a guy that was rewriting all of our teachings and was like leading this whole like separate rebel sect of the Catholic Church. And he had all these like, crazy sayings and stuff. And this guy wanted to like go find out what happened to him in his last days to like vindicate him, that he didn't do bad things against the church. He was a good guy. I'm going to go vindicate him, whatever. I have no idea why. Like it was just, he was an old man that died doing an exorcism. I don't know why that would defame him in any way. We are not explained this at all. We just know that the cardinal does not really like him doing this, but can't really stop him either, right? So he's like, okay, fine, I guess you can do it. We need somebody to look into it, so go look into it, see what's going on. So this priest goes there, and then somehow they're like, oh, we're going to use our little sinker machine. Do you want to watch? He's like, yeah, because I I need to get into her brain so I can find out what happened to Father Marin. I know she was possessed and she killed him, and I got to find out what happened. So they do the sinker thing, and then Regan and the doctor lady, they get synced up, and they see her having flashbacks to being possessed or whatever. And they see that Regan had like manipulated Father Marin's heart and caused him to die. But because the doctor lady was also witnessing this, she somehow was playing the part of Father Marin.
Yes, she got the heart murmur.
Yeah, so she got the heart attack thing that Regan was doing to Father Marin, and she got it, right? And then she couldn't stop it. So their solution to this is to pull Regan out of the sync device. But the doctor is still somehow under that vision. So then they put in the priest guy.
And I've seen how you do this. Let me
have that. I could do it. And it's like, oh, well, we need to get the priest into your thing. Like, get him down there. She's like, come down here. And he's like, okay, I'm here. Like, literally. I mean, that was the scene. And then he's like, okay, what's going on? Oh, Regan killed him by touching his heart. That's interesting. And then she was miraculously healed and fine. She didn't remember anything. Regan didn't remember anything, but the priest remembers everything. And he, as part of this, got this mystical vision of Father Marin doing an exorcism on a child in Africa.
Who was also a healer.
Right. Well, no, that was the other lady. That was in the beginning. That was the lady that he was supposed to do an exorcism for, and he didn't. And she set herself on fire. That was the other one. The kid he was supposed to have magic powers, and they were trying to leverage those magic powers to like make this locust plague go away. So again, somehow Father Marin was there to like learn what this kid's magic powers were and why they were able to save them from this locust plague that was coming in. And he got all these clues about it. They're up this like magic city that they have to climb up rocks to get to. But anyway, he found like this vision of James Earl Jones that became like a tiger. And then he woke up from it. He's like, oh, I got attacked by a tiger. Or jaguar, or whatever.
Jaguar, yeah.
Or leopard. I forget, whatever it was. Some kind of
kitty cat.
It's a big kitty. So he goes, okay, well, I have to go to Africa now to go figure out what happened to Father Marin and vindicate him. And in finding out what happened to him, we're going to find out what happened to Regan, because now, as part of this whole thing, they learned the demon's name. The demon's name is Pazuzu, right? So they know that Father Marin has had this, age-old battle with Pazuzu, and that this all happened in Africa, so they have to go there to get the tools to fight this demon. But he has to go to Africa. So he's like, good luck, guys. I'm going to Africa. I hope you can handle everything while I'm gone.
Hope shit doesn't go wrong while I'm gone.
Right. I hope nothing happens while I'm gone. And he goes there and he, finds this magic city that he has to crawl up the rock walls to get up to. And it's, I don't know. It's supposed to be in Africa, but it looks like it's Middle Eastern. I mean, it's like a mix of everything. I don't know. It's like a big melting pot of cultures in there.
Yeah.
But anyway, goofy stuff happens. He's looking for this guy called Kokomo, who's supposed to be James Earl Jones. And everybody's like, oh, we don't know no Kokomo. We don't know what you're talking about. And then he just magically runs into a guy named Kokomo, who is in like his, Locust King outfit. I don't know how else to describe that. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm the Locust King. I was possessed or whatever, but I'm better now. And you need to find tools to fight stuff. How do I do that? And then all of a sudden he wakes up, and then Kokomo is now a doctor.
Yes, he's an
in
entomologist.
A lab coat. Yeah, in a lab coat, and he's studying locusts, and he's talking about some goofy bullshit about how locusts like brush wings, and then somehow they become bad, and then good locusts don't brush their wings or some shit.
Yes, the demon's able to possess locusts and able to pass on the locust evilness, and then becomes a swarm or plague because of the bad locusts.
Right. Right. So I don't remember when it happens, but he has visions of like Father Marin like joining with Pazuzu and like flying around as a locust, and like there's so many bizarre like artsy scenes in this that serve zero purpose. So I'm leaving most of them out because they're just stupid. They're a waste of time.
We'll get to this.
Yeah, but I'm just saying there's a waste of time. There's a whole bunch of shit I'm skipping because I'm trying to make this go faster, and they don't go anywhere. They're just these stupid artistic dead ends that you're supposed to be like, ooh, that looks so pretty. I don't know what you're supposed to think, but it's just wasting everyone's time. So he eventually comes back. And then when he comes back, Regan like felt a sync with him the whole time, because once you go under in this hypnotic sync, you like linked mentally with that person, right?
Yes, as he was having, when he was getting hit by things, by rocks. She was getting hit while she was doing a
tap dance.
Yeah, right.
Again, and it sounds fucking ridiculous, and it is as ridiculous as it sounds. Yes, a tap dance routine is ruined by a mind link to a guy getting rocks thrown at him in Africa.
Yes.
So yeah, she's in like the doctor's office, like, oh, I'm fine now. You know, the priest is not getting rocks thrown at him anymore. I'm okay. And they're like, oh, well, you know, we gotta keep you in the psychiatric facility pod for some reason, and then medicate her. I don't know why. She was fine. Whatever. It doesn't matter. So she knows that the priest is coming back, so she steals the hypno device. And then she meets up with the priest at this like seedy hotel room.
Yep.
They do the sync up thing, and I don't know what happens. But somehow the priest is now on this like dedicated mission to get back to the original house from the first movie. And he's like straight up ignoring her the whole time. She's like, oh, will you talk to me? What's going on? How come you won't talk to me? Like, you got to engage with me. And he's just like not even listening to her at all. And like, you're like, did he somehow get hypnotized into thinking she doesn't exist? Like, what is going on? And
he's
then
like comatose in a way.
Right. Yeah. He's like not paying attention at all. And then she almost gets caught for stealing because she's like, they're in a train. She's like, I need money for the ticket. Like, you won't answer me. And she goes in his pocket to like get the wallet. The guy's like, oh, I'm going to arrest you because you're stealing. And then the guy finally goes, she's mine.
Yeah.
That's like, okay. He is like actually there. Like, I don't know why he wasn't talking about her before. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So we get to the house, right? And then the doctor lady also finds out, oh, they stole the hypno machine. That must mean they're going to the house. I don't know why they know that. But her and her assistant like decide to fly to the house so that they make it there at the same time.
It's available by train and plane.
Right. Yeah. So the doctor and the assistant fly. The priest and Regan take a train. And the priest and Regan get there first. They go in the house. He opens the door to the room where she was possessed. He gets attacked by like locusts and stuff. And then he goes in the house, and then the house like starts like blowing up and falling apart while he's having visions of like, again, like Linda Blair, like somehow kind of seducing him, even though she's supposed to be like 16 years old.
Yes, it's her doppelganger seducing the priest.
It's bizarre. But yeah, now she's like, she has, like, yeah, it's like literally like a body double. There's two of them. There's like the good her and the bad her. And it's kind of hard to tell them apart because Linda Blair specifically for this movie refused to wear demon makeup.
Yep.
So that's why, like, you literally can't tell. Like, she looks the same, only she's wearing like different clothes and is acting slightly differently, but she looks the same. Like, I think they managed to put the eyes on her once at the very end, but otherwise she looks identical. Anyway. So the doctor is berating the poor cab driver, telling him he needs to move faster to get to this house because they're going to miss everything. So I don't know what, he hits something and then like it shatters the windshield. And I swear to God, the car is spinning around in circles for like 5 minutes. Like they cut back to the doctor, to the priest and Regan like 3 times during the course of this car accident. Like we cut back to them. Like the car accident is still happening. Like, what are you guys doing over there? So the cabbie finally punches a hole through the windshield and goes, oh, there, now I can see. And then he plows into the house. And and of course, nobody gives a shit what happens to the cab driver, right?
He dead.
Yeah, the assistant lady and the doctor lady did get out. They don't even bother looking at the cab driver, like whatever.
He dead.
Yeah, so they go in there. We find out that the assistant was also the lady that was like Reagan's nanny back in the first movie, which is impossible to figure out because it's a different actress.
Yep.
Right? So it's like, oh, okay, they're supposed to be the same person. Gotcha. And then she decides that she's somehow going to protect Reagan by blowing the car up and lighting herself on fire and prevent the doctor lady from getting in the house.
Yes.
Which she does.
Yes.
And it holds off the doctor lady long enough to where she can't really get in the house, but they end up fighting the priest and Reagan like fight until he realizes that Kokomo told him that he was the good locust.
Yeah.
Or something. And so then he used his good locust powers to literally pull evil Reagan's heart out of her body.
Yep.
With his bare hand. And then that supposedly like killed the demon. And then everything is fine now. But the house is completely destroyed.
Yes.
End of movie.
End of movie. So this is your first time watching. What's your first thought?
Oh my God, dude. This movie, it feels like it's like 8 hours long. It is just, it goes on and on and on. It is so far up its own ass. Like thinking how like great it is. I don't know. Every line you can feel the smirk on the writer's face. Like he's like, this is a great line. And they are so.
Let me smoke some more cocaine
bad.
while writing this next line.
Oh my God. Again, there's like so many stupid artistic shots and so many stupid artistic like sequences that mean fucking nothing, that are a complete waste of time. There's like scenes of Linda Blair tap dancing and like trying to seduce the saxophone player.
Yes.
For what? For no reason. The saxophone player never makes an appearance in the rest of the movie.
Nope.
Like I don't like she's supposed to be 16 years old. Like,
yes.
why is she seducing anything?
Right.
I mean, it's so bizarre. There's so many freaking locust scenes in this movie. There's got to be like a solid 10 minutes worth of fucking locust scenes.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I forgot. At the end, Reagan does the same move that Kokomo did to chase away the locust, where he was like swinging some kind of sling above his head.
Yeah.
Did you ever read the X-Men comics in the 90s?
Yes.
You remember how they had that guy Gateway that would open up portals for them? Yeah, he was the thing that he swings around his head was the thing that he was swinging out there. And then like Reagan does that motion, but she doesn't have anything in her hands. But because she's doing that motion, it kills all the locusts somehow.
Because she's a good locust.
Right. Dear God. I was like, what is fucking happening? And the effects in this movie are so goddamn bad. Like you spent, this is the most expensive movie you've ever made at this time period, and the effects are like this. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, the Locust Wrangler costs a lot of money. Okay.
Yeah, they said like technically this movie made money, but the reviews and the public backlash was so strong that they shelved all attempts at making another one of these.
Yes,
and they did for 13 years.
Yep. This is a movie that you have to be on some sort of trip to probably appreciate. I was not, so
I don't know who would appreciate this movie, honestly.
I said this is one of those movies. Yeah, it took me a long time to get through too. And I'm like, it's not, with kids around, sometimes I don't watch movies in the open if I know there's going to be bad stuff. I'm like, I don't want to subject them just to this movie. Just because of it's just this movie in particular. Not because of anything in it. I mean, that would be bad for them other than subjecting them to this shithole of a movie. Like I said, wife is like, how is this not done yet? I go, I don't know. It feels like it's been going on for days.
Yeah, it's like the amount of plot information in this movie is like an hour, and they put another hour of crap into it.
Yeah. They probably showed what happens when you try to make a sequel to something that had a book that did really well, and then have not the original people involved with it, and you get this movie.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like literally they didn't have the original writer, the original director. No. they didn't have the only actor that came back was Regan, was Linda Blair. Yep. That was it. No one else came back.
Yep. Everyone else goes, no, we're too good for this movie.
Yeah. Again,
poor James Earl Jones.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, we'll get there. I have.
So this is one of those movies that, as you said, are always on some sort of list of being the worst ones, and I tried to purge from my head as much as possible.
Yeah.
So, what are your highlights?
I only got the one, and that's I liked the 70s future kind of mystique to that whole psychological center. That was just bizarre, but also interesting. And that's really it.
I mean, they had her not blink when she was in the light bulb flashing contest.
Yeah, I mean that's great. But like, okay.
About it.
Yeah. Right.
Do you want me to roll in my low points? Or you want to go first?
That's up to you.
I'll roll in my low points.
All right.
Poor James Earl Jones. He deserves better.
Well, he's barely in it.
I know.
He was in it for like maybe 5 minutes. He had 3 costume changes, and he was in not even 5 minutes of the movie. And he probably got a hell of a paycheck and walked away.
Oh, absolutely. Let's see here. Somehow Regan is now psychic and is able to cure an autistic child to be able to speak.
Yeah. Without any explanation, without any reason.
I'm gonna be a psychiatrist. You're a little young. That's it. That was the reason.
Like, okay, you just miraculously caused an autistic girl to talk. Why don't you try for number 2?
Right.
Let's see if there's truth to this. They're immediately like, nah, whatever. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What? But again, it's never revisited. It never comes up again. Again, this movie is so bizarre. Like, it brings up so many things, and it doesn't finish any of it.
Correct. The priest going down is like, oh, I know this path. This is the path of the demon that he flew. Pazuzu. Also, pesticides.
Right.
I thoroughly enjoy the scene of the people trying to ward off the locusts from their land with guns, bows and arrows,
muskets. They were trying to use that big cloud of black smoke that comes out of them old muskets to scare them away.
Banging bells, and some just waving their hands generally in the vicinity of the locusts. I'm just like, what?
Well, what the hell else are you gonna do? Locusts are eating all your crops. If they don't get rid of them, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
So what do? You do whatever you think of, whatever the hell you can.
I feel like they only had like 4 props for people in that. Just shoo them away. Just
all right.
Shoo.
Either you got a big rope with a rock on it, and you got a musket.
Right. That hexagonal glass shit, like they're like turning lights off in the individual tubes, essentially.
Right. They're made of glass. Like, yeah, good one, genius. It doesn't matter if you turn the lights off.
Right. Like that would be like a logistical nightmare of an office.
Yeah.
I'm like, I was getting lost just trying to like look where everyone was, like all the weird stuff. Like, here's this rolling carpet log. I'm like, at first I'm like, is there a cat back there? No, it's just kids rolling a carpet log. Okay.
In a room that's the exact size of the carpet log, so they can only roll it like 2 feet one way and then 2 feet back the other way.
Oh, the weird doppelganger seduction to the priest. And let's talk about the guy who seemed to be falling for 30 minutes.
Dude, I was laughing so hard. The dog came up to me and was trying to comfort me because he thought I was like upset. Like that's how loud I was laughing. It is so ridiculous. The guy was like literally like pushing himself against the walls going, and it's very obviously just like a drama school dropout, like flopping against the wall. I mean, that's all it was. And then he was like started doing this bizarre spin move
in a very narrow crevice.
Right, he was doing this bizarre spin move, doing everything in his power to not touch the walls with any limb.
Yes.
What is happening? What is this guy doing? But he's also moving extremely slow. Like anybody could have reached out and grabbed him and pulled him. Like it was so bizarre. Yeah,
and I mean, the poor guy, they're like, oh, we don't know where he went. And then the priest is able to find him.
Yeah, like you didn't see him fall, here. But like
right.
The priest, dear God, the priest was looking through someone else's eyes.
Yes,
that was the whole point of this. If he knew where he fell, then the guy whose eyes he was watching through also knew where he fell, and that guy just didn't care.
Correct.
It was supposed to be Father Marin, like some great guy he is. He's like, whatever, he's dead. Who gives a shit?
Right.
I got priest.
And then sometimes James Earl was a kitty. Sometimes he wasn't a kitty.
Sometimes he was a cat. Sometimes he was Locust King.
Right.
Wearing a big bug hat.
Yep.
Why? Nope. You're not going to find out why. You're not going to get any explanation at all. Sometimes he's a cat. Sometimes he's a Locust Man. Sometimes he's just a dude in a lab coat.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
That's all you get. He's only in it for 5 minutes. We don't have enough time to explain.
You had plenty of time to explain. You just chose not to.
But the priest, he comes back from Africa wearing the exact same clothes, except his shirt got a lot brighter.
Yes.
Instead of wearing just a regular white shirt, now he's wearing like this bizarre disco red and gold shirt underneath. Like, well, you found some soul over there in Africa, I guess. What the hell is that?
And that car was made out of paper mache.
Oh my God. Yeah, like the cab touched that gate and literally like collapsed in on itself.
Rumpled.
Yeah, like all the doors flew off.
Yeah,
I was like, whoa.
Yeah, those are my low points.
Oh my God. Okay, I think the thing that really pisses me off, there's two parts here. One, they retcon Father Marin into being like, again, this like somehow rebel leader of the Catholic Church, like that was teaching all these like, heretical beliefs and blah, blah, blah. Like the dude was just an old man. He was sitting in a monastery writing a book. Like, what are you talking about? Like none of this ever happened in the first one. They like made him into this bizarre mythical figure in the second one. I'm sorry. Max von Sydow did actually come back for this movie. It was Linda Blair and Max von Sydow. He was never in the plot line with the future people, but when they went back in time to see what Father Marin was doing, that was Max von Sydow in his not old man makeup, so he looks slightly younger.
Yeah, he's like 40. So.
Right, yeah. So he still looks like an old man, but he's not quite as old as he looked in the first one because he didn't have all that white paint on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, but they made him into this like mythical figure, which he definitely was not. And they said like, oh yeah, he did like a backwater third world exorcism, and they made it like it wasn't a big deal. But in this movie, they made it like he was fighting for his life against the demon Pazuzu. And that was his lifelong work was hunting the world and eradicating it from evil, and specifically against the evil demonic, king of the wind or whatever the fuck. They were talking about all this bizarre, crazy shit it was nowhere near that deep in the first one. He was just an old man that had some experience doing an exorcism, so they assigned him to do it. That was it. That was the first movie. And this one made him into this like mythical zealot. It was bizarre. Two, like they basically discredited like Father Karras' sacrifice, right?
Yes. Like
Father Karras like took the demon into him and then killed himself to save that girl.
Yeah.
And then in this movie, they're like, oh no, the demon was hiding in her all along. All she needed to do was get hypnotized and demon's back. Like totally threw his sacrifice out the window. Like he killed himself for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, that's unforgivable. Unforgivable. If you're a sequel to your main movie, don't undermine your own movie. They did it with 2 of the major characters. This hypnotism machine. What the hell is that? Like, what does that even mean? Like, I was trying to understand it. There literally is no understanding this thing. Yep. It is like, okay, if 2 people are hypnotized together, what can you accomplish? And this is like, we're talking miraculous, like Field of Echoes level of hypnotizing, right? To where you can, full on, have them do subconscious shit or whatever. If you have 2 people that are linked and hypnotizing each other, what's going to happen? Nothing, because they're both fucking hypnotized. You know what I'm saying? Like, nothing is going to happen. Again, there's no, like, link between them. It's a light. And, like, how are you able to see what's in someone else's brain from a light? It's not like you have a connector hooked up to your head or something. They just have some EKG wires. Like, okay, so you can feel brainwaves somehow? Like, there's no explanation as to how they're able to see the other person's memories. That makes no sense. Even in this bizarre pseudo future that they think they're in, there's no way you could ever see anyone's memories. There's no any kind of technology that would ever do that. And the most bizarre thing, even if that did exist, right? For you to be able to see someone else's memories, you have to be linked. Now, there's a scene where Linda Blair and the doctor lady are synced in Linda Blair's memory. She gets upset. Her heart starts hurting. They pull Linda Blair out. Somehow she's still in her memories?
Yep.
How is that possible? And how can you get a third party to then sync with the first person's memories through the second person and then somehow manipulate it? It doesn't. Oh my God. This thing is just the biggest like lump of pseudoscience bullshit. It was pissing me off the entire time they were talking about it. I'm like, this is just a MacGuffin. I'm like, there is no reason for this thing to ever exist. Why did you have to have this magic fucking machine? You could have just had a fucking regular hypnotizing session and you accidentally brought the demon back. Done. It's not hard to do. You don't need all this. Like, somebody like literally was up their own ass, like going, I can write this in and it's going to sound great. Like, I wrote myself out of this hole. No, you didn't. You made it worse. Oh my God, that thing was the dumbest shit I've ever seen. Okay, another thing. There was 2 priests in that room, right?
Yes.
They both fucking died.
Yep.
How do these people know what happened in the room?
Science.
There's so many people that know exactly what happened in the room. There was only 2 people in there. All the scenes where they're in that refrigerated room, no one else is in, even by the doorway.
Mom's not even close.
No, Mom is all the way downstairs.
Yep.
She's in the kitchen drinking or something. I don't know what she's doing, but no one is up by that room. No one knows what happens in that room, but all of a sudden, somehow in this sequel, they all know. Maybe they all use the HypnoSync machine, I guess.
They had to. I mean, what else is it there for?
Now I have here in all capital letters, locusts. There's way, way too many locusts in this movie. There's way too many close-ups on locusts. Locusts are crawling on people. They're flying around. Other. They're in cages. Oh my God, they're everywhere, and they're disgusting. And they're all real. I was reading articles where they were talking about shipping in these locusts, and they were dying so fast that they had to keep buying them. That's like where a lot of their money was going, because they could only buy them with 1,500 at a time, and they would 100 of them would die per day. So they were like constantly buying, because how many thousands of locusts were in the movie?
Oh my tens of thousands.
Ugh. Okay, yeah, the guy falling down. We already went through that. That was, oh my God, that was so bad. Okay, I gotta say it, right? Obviously a white guy wrote this. Why does Africa have to be? Why does Africa have to be this like weird backwater country? Like everybody's dressed in like furs, and like they're not savage people over there. It's like it would have been a regular city. Like, why do you have to make it this weird magic city that you have to climb up rocks to get to? And then all the people are dressed like, extras from a. Oh my God, it was. ridiculous. Like, poor James Earl Jones had to wear 2 different racist costumes.
Yep.
It's like, what the fuck is going on in this movie? But yeah, again, the demon remaining completely discredits the sacrifice from the first movie. It doesn't make any sense at all. Around here is when I literally gave up. And I wrote down, I give up, because I was getting too pissed off. I had to keep taking breaks. And when I came back from like my 3rd break, I'm like, I can't even take notes. I just need to get through this. I just need to power through this. I was like clearing, like, rum and cokes. Like, just, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Like, I never had a stronger urge to just turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
I'll go first this time for inappropriate use crucifixes. 0.5. This is awful.
Holy cats.
This is awful. Like,
what did I give Jack Frost?
Oh, you saying this might be the lowest one?
It should be. It needs to be. So I need to know what I gave Jack Frost. So that I can give this,
it up right
so
now.
I can be lower than
that. You gave Jack Frost 2.
What I give Jack Frost 2.
0.5.
Okay. This will get a 0.1. 0.1 inappropriately used crucifixes out of 10. This movie is horrible.
Yeah. It really is.
But again, it's not production value. That's the thing that pisses me off. It's like they had the money to make something good, and they again, the people were so far up their own ass that they like were literally like writing themselves in circles, like trying to make this sound interesting and like put all these MacGuffins and magic shit. Like, no one knows what the hell is going on. Like, again, there's so many plot threads that go fucking nowhere. Like, this movie is just hard to watch. It's hard to get through. I mean, you might have to hold me at gunpoint to make me watch this again, honestly. I might rather die than try to make it through this movie again. It is that bad.
This movie is one of those movies where we have the phrase that we do at the end of these things. We watch this, so you don't have to.
Yeah.
Please.
Do yourself a favor. Don't do it.
Don't.
If you watch the first one and you're like, you know what? I disagree. This is the greatest horror movie of all time. Hey, that's fair. That's fair, man. I will tell you, you will still believe The Exorcist 2 is one of the worst movies of all time. I guarantee you. Doesn't matter how much you love the first one. I would say probably if you love the first one, you probably hate this one more. Because again, it counteracts the whole climax of the first movie is counteracted not once, but twice in this movie. Oh. It is painful.
This is why I can never say the franchise as a whole is great. It's not good. It's not watchable.
I didn't watch I'll watch a franchise until I hit a movie that I don't like. And then I'll stop.
Yeah.
That's why Saw, I got to 6?
Yeah.
And then I was like, nah, I think I'm done. But I got pretty far. I liked it, enough to get that far. Like this one, I didn't like the first one enough, so I'm like, nah, I'm done. But even if I did like the first one enough, I sure as hell would have been done in the second one. I don't think I ever would have made it through the second one. I would have turned it off.
Oh, yeah.
There's very, very few movies that I would not watch. Because I will watch them because I'm a firm believer in the zero level.
Yep.
And that you have to suffer through the bad in order to truly appreciate the good. And I really do believe that. But this, I think, is too much. Like this, my scores are probably going to be a lot higher for movies after this point because I see how low the other side goes now. So the other side has to go up to compensate.
Yes, and this is why in November. And this is why November is Sales Month to pick because of stuff I do like this. Oh, all right. You ready to get through this monstrosity?
Okay. Now, here, fair enough. Exorcist 3. I actually like this movie. I'm not gonna say it was like great or anything, but I actually liked it. I actually cared for it. I think I might actually like this one more than I liked the first one. I think it's just a much better told story, a more fun story.
Well, I think a lot of it, we'll just go into a little bit brief history of this, is essentially the writer of the first Exorcist book says, I watched Exorcist 2. He's like, okay, I'm writing an actual sequel.
Yeah, I want absolute control over this movie. And they're like, okay, he's the writer and the fucking director of this movie. Like,
Right.
he got everything. And he literally was like, okay, in order to make this one good, I have to completely ignore the second movie and pretend like it never happened, which is exactly what he does, to the point where he won't even touch actors that were in the second movie.
Right.
Linda Blair is out. Max von Sydow is out. The only guy he brings back is the Father Karras, who is not in the second one, not even mentioned in the second.
Right. So yeah, so essentially, I mean, there's a lot of just cop procedurals in this movie, so I'll kind of glaze over them a little bit.
Well, okay, you want it? We could just do the fast version. Do you want to do the fast version?
Let's just do the fast version.
Fast version is there was a serial killer that existed 15 years ago.
So in the timeline of The Exorcist, it's 1975. Even though it came out in 73, it's 1975.
Uh-huh.
And this takes place in 1990.
Right, yeah. So it's supposed to be like whatever 15-ish years later. Okay.
Right.
So basically there was a serial killer that was active 15 years ago. They're called the Gemini Killer.
It's a play on the Zodiac Killer.
Right, yeah. And they killed in a very specific way. Like they cut off a certain finger and they carved a certain symbol into the body.
And his left hand and the right hand finger was cut off.
Yeah, that was what really happened. The police told the public that it was the middle finger, and they carved the symbol on the back. That's what they told everyone. So
any copycats or people claim I'm the Gemini Killer, like was happening to Zodiac Killer, like, okay, where'd you do this stuff? And they go, okay, clearly you're wrong.
Right, yeah. So essentially, whatever. So the person who is the actual killer is the only one, or the police department or the actual killer is the only one who knows the real thing. So
yeah.
Anyway, 15 years ago, a serial killer killed a whole bunch of people following this MO. They caught him. He was convicted. He was put to death in the electric chair.
Yep. He did.
Yeah. And then 15 years later, the murders start happening again. But they're happening in the way that only the police and the killer would have known, the correct way. The right finger is cut off. The right symbol is done. Yep. And they're like, oh man, like what's going on? Like, how is this possible? The guy was put to death. What is going on? And they find out that basically, distills down to, they find out that one of the, people in the psych ward that's like locked in his cell all day long, that was catatonic for 15 years, is now all of a sudden back up and around.
When these murders started happening throughout the town.
Right. So they basically go to talk to the priest. The priest, I gave it away. Oh, I gave it away. But no, the guy is Father Karras.
Yes.
Or I should say Father Karras's body.
Yes. And the detective is the detective from the first one. Not the same actor.
Is it?
Yeah. I just looked it up. It's Kinderman.
Okay. I did. While you were looking before, I did look up. It is that same priest too.
Yeah.
Because I was like, it's not the same actor. I didn't get it. But no, yeah, it is the same guy. It's a different actor, but it's the same character. That same father. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So you were right on that. But yeah, so anyway, they have the connection to Father Karras. They knew who he was. So anyway, what happened was when he died, he did die, but then the demon or whatever, Pazuzu decided, hey, this Gemini killer died around the same time. Like, we like what he does. Let's put him back in this body. Yep. So they put him back in the body, but unfortunately the brain was all mushed up, right? Because he got thrown down a whole shit ton of stairs, right?
His head kind of would have exploded a little bit. Yes.
So it took the Gemini killer 15 years to rebuild the brain to where he could come back.
Yep.
But he came back with like magic powers. He now has the ability to take over like these like catatonic kind of Alzheimer's patients.
He's able to transfer his state and could puppet them.
Right. So he's basically using like old like catatonic, / like Alzheimer's / like autistic older people to do the murders for him. while he's locked up in a straitjacket in this cell.
Right.
That's the short version of this whole movie. There's a lot of, again, like you said, a lot of cop investigation stuff, a lot of noir-y stuff going on, with finding out things.
It hands down boots on the pavement.
Yeah. So it's again, it's interesting, but like, we don't have to go into all that. No. After the mess that was 2, I'm sure this is getting long enough. So basically that's what it is. So at the end, they try to stop him, but now he has like telekinetic powers. And so the one priest tries to exorcise him. That priest gets like essentially like his skin ripped
melted
off.
To the wall.
Right. Like, yeah, he gets telekinetic like skin ripped off.
We finally get an exorcist with 15 minutes left.
Right. That's really he like shows up, tries it, and then fails. That priest is not really in the rest of the movie.
Nope.
So essentially like the cop is trying to convince this, the Gemini killer, like, no, the priest is still in there. The priest is still in there. No, he's not. And he finally gets the priest to like come back out, so like he kind of saves his own life because the demon was trying to kill him. So He saves his own life. The priest manages to take over again and he goes, shoot me. Like literally he's like, that's the only way I'm going to be able to get out of this is you got to kill me. So he shoots him and he dies and then it's over.
Yes, I said he should have said exercise this.
Yeah, but that's the short version. Like I said, I actually did like this movie, and I think it's worth watching. I really liked George C. Scott. I really liked how he, kind of played the character like a very, by the numbers, old school. Like we're talking.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah. Old school cop guy, and it was again. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, the killer thing was cool.
Just think of the movie Seven, but supernatural and the Exorcist characters.
And we can't forget, this was Jeffrey Dahmer's favorite movie.
I know, right?
This movie he forced multiple of his victims to watch before he killed them. So remember that if you ever watch this movie, that some people were like fearful for their life when they were watching this movie, sitting next to Jeffrey Dahmer on his blood-soaked bed.
Let's face it. If you really want to torture them, number 2 was.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I'm saying like this movie's got an extra creep factor when you imagine that Jeffrey Dahmer would show this to his victims before he killed them. Not all of them, but more than one.
And fun fact, because of the wacky ass angel heaven scene, the blind guy in the Samuel L. Jackson.
Are you? Is it him?
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, that looks like Samuel L. Jackson, but
that's Samuel L. Jackson.
I didn't want to be racist to be like, all black folks look alike. I was like, no, it can't be.
And I'll say this right now. Before we get into the highlights, stellar performance by Brad Dourif.
Yeah. Well, stellar performance by Brad Dourif, and he managed to squeeze in Child's Play into one of his speeches.
Oh, absolutely. And he also did the Chucky laugh in the movie.
Yeah, sure did.
So what were this is the first time you've seen this. So what were your first thoughts on this?
Again, I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. I liked the whole cop aspect of it. I liked the whole like relationship that the cop had with, everything that was happening around him and, the evidence kind of leaning up to things and, him kind of getting more and more kind of upset and unhinged as time went on. Again, I thought it was really cool. There's some scenes where you're not really told what the hell is happening.
No.
And you have to, but you do figure it out. You figure it out by the end. Like 2, no, you don't get any answers. You're like, what the fuck is that? Nope, you're not getting an answer to that. But this one, you do get an answer. Like there's the scene where the doctor was like reading off a note, like telling him how they discovered the priest and shit. You're like, why the hell is he doing that? But then you find out at the end that like, yeah, he was literally threatening. Like this, the Gemini killer was threatening. This is before we knew the Gemini killer was there.
Right. He's reading a script.
Right. Yeah. He's reading a script that the Gemini killer told him to read. That's why he was doing that.
Right.
Yeah. It just things like that. Like, like when he's talking to, like when he goes in to talk to Father Karras, at first it looks like Father Karras and then it looks like Brad Dourif. And you're like, okay, did he just like see in his mind that it was the priest? or was it actually the priest and now he's seeing just what his mind looks like? I mean,
that was always a question the first time watching it.
Right. And that I like that. It was like, you don't know who is mentally unstable, right? You don't know if the cop is, you don't know if he is, you don't know if it's really the priest because it was like obsessed with finding him, or if it wasn't, you don't know.
Right.
And again, you find out towards the end, it does, lay it out for you. But like for a while there, you just don't know. And it's done in an interesting way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. This is we'll get into it with probably the highlights and low points of what this movie is in this world. It is like a bookend to the trilogy. It is like the defined ending, presumably, right?
Right.
You have the same detective coming back. He knew Karras. He was friends with Karras. So seeing Karras would be, initial thoughts like, oh, he's just fucking with him.
Right.
Like if you want to make him lose his shit, you're going to look like his friend that died 15 years ago. And that would be perfectly reasonable explanation as well. Quite honestly. Because we've seen that, Karras saw his mother, so we knew that is a power of Pazuzu in the canon world.
Right. Yeah. It was just, again, it was very open-ended as to like, who is seeing what, like what's real, what's not real. And it's, again, I like that. It was interesting. It was well done, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is a kind of a whodunit too. Because you are going through, we don't get the answers until the cop gets the answers.
Right.
Which is really interesting of how they've been doing this. Is this a long movie? It is.
Yeah, but this one is this one is fine. This one is normal movie length. It's making its way to the end, you know what I mean? But it's not like dragging shit out or anything like that. It's it uses its time effectively. To where I think the first one was too slow. The second one was, it's a fucking mess. It was all over the place. And I think this one has a good pace to it.
Yeah. I'll start with my highlights and we'll go, like I said, Brad Dourif, amazing. The acting of this across the board was good.
I will say this. The only thing I did not like about Brad Dourif's performance, and it has nothing to do with his performance. It has to do with like, as it went on, they like started to like use a voice modulator on his voice.
He's creepy enough.
Yeah, regularly. That's what I'm saying. Like, you don't need to do that. He was fine. He was great before then. But they like made his voice sound like a little deeper. Like I think they were trying to go for like a little more like malevolent or something. But like you really didn't need to. Like I think it was fine the way it was. That was again, his performance, like you said, it was a great performance. I just didn't like the way that they fucked with his voice a little bit. They tried to make it sound evil when I don't think you had to. He's already got the voice.
He absolutely already has a voice. And like I said, especially for him, he's in the straitjacket pretty much the entire time we see him.
Right.
And he is acting with just his face.
Yep. Yeah.
And he did great at it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I didn't realize this was the same detective supposed to be the same character until I looked up because he seems very different.
Yeah, no,
different.
I did not see it as the same guy at all. This first guy seemed like kind of like a Columbo. So he was trying to like convince you. Yeah, like he was trying to convince you that he was like a dopey, harmless dude, and then at the end he stings you. That was what I got the vibe from the guy in the first movie. This guy was like no nonsense, hard as nails all the time.
Like on the verge of a heart attack all the time.
Right, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I think he did great. I think everyone did great in the movie. I thought it was really interesting to see this power of more meat puppets, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And this is based off the book Legion. So Legion is a collection of demons. Like I said, it to me, it felt if they would have said, "Hey, here's Pinhead," I'd be like, "All right, it's a Hellraiser movie." It was because it was so out of left field in comparison to the first two.
And I would say, yeah, maybe they did tack that onto this, but I mean, the guy who wrote the first novel both wrote and fucking directed this movie, right? So it's like you can't say that,
right? But I'm like, it felt like it could have been something else.
No, yeah, I understand. Yeah, I get where you're coming from, and like I said, I would think the same thing if I didn't know that it was the same guy that did everything in this movie.
Yeah. No, and like I said, it was weird in ways that were good. And it didn't take away from the movie for it.
Right.
And I could have sworn at one point in time the female nurse had a penis. Pretty sure towards the end of the movie, she's walking down the hall, penis. Pretty sure.
I mean, and that's fine. Hey, you know, whatever you want to do. I'm just saying you can have a penis and that's acceptable. Live your truth, right?
Yes.
But learn how to put on fucking lipstick. Dear God, those fucking lines were all over the place. Looked like she put it on when she was driving over bumps or something. What the fuck is wrong with you, lady? How long you been putting on lipstick? You don't know how to put it on right.
Yeah,
it's like a 60-year-old lady doesn't know how to put on lipstick straight. Like, why are you even wearing lipstick anyway? You're a fucking nurse. Why are you wearing bright red ass lipstick?
Like I said, and you know the crime scenes. Like this killer was going into churches and killing people and priests and decapitating people and shoving statue heads on top of them.
Oh yeah. The kills are gruesome in this, man.
Oh yeah. We don't really get kills in the other one, so this is really the pinnacle of, you know, being probably made in the late 80s, early 90s slasher vibes. They realized they had to step up their game from the last shit they've done.
Yeah.
And evolve with it.
Yeah, they are cool. I mean, yeah, that's like one of the things that drives this guy is like these killings are brutal.
Oh yeah, that he injects them with just enough that they're alive while he's killing them.
Right.
And they die from, as they said, slow ass asphyxiation.
Right.
Those are my highlights. What about you?
I'll agree. Brad Dourif did a fantastic job. I think it was, again, I mean, it was all him. I mean, like, he was just sitting there. he sat in the same spot in the entire movie. He didn't move. Yeah. He just was sitting on a cot in a straitjacket the whole movie. And every performance he was in was great. George C. Scott, who played the cop, was fantastic. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen him in anything else, but you ever see Patton?
I have not. Was he Patton?
Yeah. I think he won awards for that movie. Like,
wow.
He destroyed that movie because I'm going to say like Patton was like one of those movies that like swept the awards that year. And I'm pretty sure he won an award for that. But yeah, he was fucking great in this. I mean, I think they played off of each other very, very well.
It was a Clarice and Hannibal. Really was.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was one of the great interviews. I mean, yeah, it's weird that it's in a sequel to a horrible fucking movie, but yeah, I mean, the sequel to the sequel is a far better movie.
Yes,
which is bizarre. That usually never happens. But I did like those. That's that's about it. I mean, I like the Gemini killer, the aspect of it, like the whole, you know, like a serial killer comes back. It reminds me of, you ever play that game Shadow Man?
Yes.
Well, like the serial killers were like coming back. Like there was like Jack the Ripper 2, who was like reenacting all Jack the Ripper's killings and stuff. It reminded me of that. I haven't thought of that game for 30 years. I don't know how long ago that game fucking came out, but
Shadow Man probably came out on PS1, so we're talking 25-ish years.
Yeah, it was a long ass time ago. But I still remember that part of it because I thought that was cool. The game itself was but that part of it, the story level, but it was like, this is kind of like retelling a piece of that. It was pretty cool. I enjoyed it.
What about your low points then?
The low points is, I mean, there's kind of like weak tie-ins to the first one, right? I mean, we have Father Karras, of course, but it's not the same Father Karras. It's just his body. But that's really it. I mean, at least they kept that sacrifice in place. Right, like and the demon stayed with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the demon stayed with him and didn't like somehow stay in Linda Blair. Again, he just completely like ignored the second one, and I'm totally on board with that. Please do. But yeah, just completely ignored it. But yeah, like again, at least that, you know, the sacrifice was still there. Like, you know, Linda Blair, Regan is off living her best life somewhere, and that's good. You know, he's still dealing with it here. But yeah, I thought the tie-in was a little week. I guess it's stronger. I didn't realize that the cop and that priest were the characters, supposed to be the characters in the first one. If I had known that, that's a lot more tie-ins to the first one than I realized.
Right.
But yeah, I was saying they're kind of like, you know, lower tier characters that are linked around, you know, because the Gemini killer is killing people that were like related to the first exorcism.
Yes.
And that was
anyone that dealt with the Father Karras and the detective they were going after.
Right, yeah. And that was, again, at that point, I was just like, well, these are some fucking third-tier characters that we barely saw in the first one. What the hell is it? But again, I didn't realize those characters were the same. I guess I just didn't put that together. I guess I didn't remember their names. But again, to be fair, I also watched Exorcist 2 right before this movie. And I was already a few drinks deep when I got here, so I guess I can forgive myself for that.
Yes.
But yeah, so that's their computer systems were laughably hilarious. There's like they had the fingerprint match system. Yep. Like it was like, this is what we got in 1990. Like, come on, dude. Whoever was the graphic designer did a horrible job. But I mean, to be fair, he only had to do like one graphic design. It was probably somebody's kid or something.
Yes.
But yeah, I already talked about Brad Dourif's voice like later on that bothered me, and then that nurse's goddamn lipstick. Yeah, I did not like that either. But yeah, that's it. What do you
got? Well, Fabio.
Fabio and fucking Larry King. No, where Larry King was he? I think he was in the second one.
No, he was in this one too.
Was Larry King in this one?
Yeah, yeah. And then Samuel L. Jackson, Patrick Ewing, the basketball player, was also in heaven. But Fabio was like, he stares at the camera and then goes past him and then turns back. Yes, it's Fabio. We get it. It's fucking Fabio.
Yeah. I wanted to see a bird fly in his face.
I know. Yeah, I agree with the Brad Dourif voice modulation. That scream when his daughter was getting attacked with a giant ass shears, like
that scene was like
awful.
It looked like your head was coming off, dude. Like that was close.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they're gonna do it, but no, they didn't. I was like,
oh. And well, there wasn't really much of an exorcist.
No, there wasn't. Movie. Like they mentioned, like earlier in the movie, they mentioned like, hey, there's this priest that works he's a chaplain in he runs the chapel in the church. And I think he did an exorcism once and he came back and his hair was all white.
Yep.
They're like, oh, is there a story behind that? He's like, yeah, I'm sure there is.
Right.
That was it. That was the only thing we got. And there was a couple of scenes of him like being a priest, but he wasn't connected to anyone else.
No.
So it just like they would go like, okay, there's this white haired guy being a priest, got it. Back to whatever was happening. And then like at the very end, yeah, he walked in and he was like, yeah, I'm here to do your exorcism. And then he got the skin fucking peeled off. And then that was it.
The Exorcist lasted like a minute.
Yeah. Like,
and then the cop became the Exorcist.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, if you're able to mind meat puppet someone, I don't think shooting the priest in the head was going to do anything. Same.
Well, I mean, again, the thing I was thinking is that, yeah, the demon is not really going to go away forever. But
no,
if he kills the priest while the priest is in his body and in control of it, maybe then he can finally go to heaven. That's what I was like, okay, that was the whole point of this, is he wants his priest friend to just go, die the way he was supposed to. And the fact that, they're still parading his body around is, sacrilegious to him, and that he, won't let him pass on.
Right. They could have had this movie being called Have Gun, Will Exercise.
Yeah. Don't move or the cop will shoot.
Right. This is very, very not leaning to really the exorcisms at all.
Fair.
So that's just like I said, it felt like the procedural crop drama of Hellraiser, whatever number was, 6 or 7.
I don't know. They all blended together, man.
Okay, so why don't you give us how many inappropriately used crucifixes you give this movie?
For this one, I'm actually going to go for 6.25. 6.25 inappropriately used crucifixes out of 10.
That's fair. Like this definitely was better. It was your fresher breath air that I don't think we're gonna get in the next 3.
I'm pretty sure we're not either. I'm just. But this one was a pleasant surprise. I did not expect 3 to be as good as it was. Like I said, I like this one more than I like the first one, which is probably like sacrilege to a lot of people. But for me personally, I did like this one more than the first one. And the second one can burn in hell.
Yeah. I will agree. This definitely is better than the first one. Hands down better than the second one.
Well,
everything
there's no contest.
I mean, when Jack Frost 2 beats your movie, that's saying
yeah.
I will go to 6. I will go to 6 inappropriately used crucifixes out of 10. Yeah, our bar has been reset to 0.
Like I said, my scores might get higher after 2 because I think I refound my 0 level. Like I watched a movie that was bad enough to reset my clock again. So yeah, they may get higher from here on out.
All right, so let's end this thing. Can we be awakened from our dominion? How many times must Pazuzu be put to rest? Because clearly 3 is not enough.
Yeah.
Will history see us as heretics for dumping on this franchise? So we'll conclude our journey next week with 3 more Exorcist movies. That is the prequel to The Exorcist. I think it's just called Exorcist Prequel.
I don't know.
And then we have Exorcist Dominion, which I'm pretty sure is the one was rewritten 3 times to get what we got. And the highly anticipated Exorcist Believer. So that's be our next round. We will be following up. We know there's right now there was 2 planned sequels to Believer. We'll see if those still happen.
Right.
At this point in time. And they will be part of our roundups when we get to them. I think we have a reprieve until 2025 for the next one. So we should be good there.
Right.
So remember, we watch bad movies, so you don't have to. And this has been Graveyard saying, have you checked on the children?
This is Salem saying, long live the new flesh.
Good night.